check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation. This man right here is kicker Mike Nugent, and he had an incredibly successful career in the NFL. I think it's fair to say that when you play 16 seasons in the league, to the point that when your career started, Paul Tagliabue was the commissioner, and when your career ended, we were dealing with COVID, that you had a very lengthy and successful career in football. Nugent was one of the more reliable kickers out there, as in his 16-year career, he made 259 field goals, ranking inside the top 40 at the time of his retirement in NFL history in field goals made. This was a man that you could count on to hit it over 80% of the time, which was above the league-wide average during the time of his career. And he even had multiple seasons where he finished inside the top 10 in the NFL in field goal percentage and field goals made. And from his 2010 game against the Baltimore Ravens when he was a member of the Cincinnati Bengals, where he went 5 for 5 and scored all 15 points for the Bengals in their 15-10 opening day win against their division rival, to his 2007 game as a member of the New York Jets against the Pittsburgh Steelers, when he went 4 for 4 and drilled the game-winning field goal in overtime to pull off the upset, and his game-winning overtime kick later that season against Kansas City, there are many great moments that Nugent was a part of and that Nugent was responsible for. Mike Nugent is a name that probably won't be forgotten throughout NFL history anytime soon, especially if you were a fan in the late 2000s and throughout the 2010s. And speaking of being forgotten throughout the history of the NFL, one of the main goals of this channel is to preserve the history of the NFL by posting weird and wacky videos every single day about things that you might not know about, like the story in today's video. So if you like that sort of stuff and want to help us with our goal, then be sure to like this video down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. However, what if I said that for this man right here, Mike Nugent, his lengthy and solid career in the NFL almost never happened? What if he was one kick away from probably being cut and maybe never seeing an NFL field again, and he was not only able to drill the kick, but was able to parlay that into another decade and a half playing in the league? Well, in 2006, that was the reality for Nugent, or at least, that's what it seemed. With the coaching staff seemingly losing faith in Nugent, during a game against the Houston Texans, he lined up for the kick that changed his career that 20 years later, especially with the Jets playing the Texans tonight on Halloween if you're watching as of this video getting released, deserves a deep dive. Because nearly 20 years later, this is the story behind the 2006 battle between the New York Jets and the Houston Texans, and the game and the kick that may have just saved Mike Nugent's career. Before I talk about the actual kick in question and its importance, we need some context to understand how Nugent's career was going up until this point, as well as how the game was going that these teams were playing. It's November 26, 2006. It's week 12 of the NFL season, and as we're playing football on Thanksgiving Day weekend, we've got an AFC battle on our hands over at Giants Stadium in the Meadowlands between the New York Jets and the Houston Texans. For the main team in our story, the Jets, to say that this was a big game for them would be putting it incredibly lightly. For one, this was a game that the Jets were absolutely expected to win, seeing as they were playing one of the worst teams in football. 5 years into their franchise's existence, and the Texans had still not found their groove, as they enter this game with a 3-7 record, basically out of the playoff picture. But for the Jets, unlike the Texans, their season was still very much alive, provided that they win this game. New York entered this one with a 5-5 record, and while the division race was technically still in play, however unrealistic it may have been to try and catch the 7-3 Patriots with 6 to play, the wildcard race was wide open. Entering week 12, there were a slew of teams sitting with 4, 5, or 6 wins that were vying for one of 2 wildcard spots. Win this game and get to above 500, and you have a chance to potentially put yourself in the driver's seat to make it back to the playoffs for the second time in the last 3 years. Lose this game, and to say that you've got an uphill climb would be putting it very, very lightly. And speaking of guys have an uphill climb, let's talk about this man right here, their kicker, Mike Nugent. The Jets drafted Nugent in the second round of the 2005 NFL Draft, hoping to provide some stability to the kicking position, which, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure why they needed that. I'm not sure why they did it. seeing as their previous kicker, Doug Bryan, was really good, and definitely didn't choke a playoff game away in heartbreaking fashion and make Jets fans lose their mind.
Is it long enough? No! He missed it!
That makes sense now. Anyways, even though the Jets thought that they were getting stability and a really good kicker with Nugent, it didn't seem that way at first for the Ohio State man. In 2005, Nugent hit on just 78.6% of his field goals, and was 0 for 2 from 50-plus yards. For some perspective, not only was Nugent in the bottom half of the league in field goal percentage, but the average kicker was hitting a hair above 50% from 50-plus yards back then. So for a second-round pick, to not hit a single kick from that far out, despite having multiple attempts, is a red flag, especially because he was missing some of these kicks short. And in 2006, Nugent's struggles not only continued, but they even got worse. We were 11 weeks into the season, and Nugent was hitting 72% of his kicks. By itself, that's really bad. In fact, it's so bad that out of the 32 kickers through 11 weeks to attempt at least 10 field goals, Nugent ranked 27th in the NFL in field goal percentage. I was able to find out this information quickly and easily thanks to the sponsor of today's video, StatHead, from the creators of Pro Football Reference. StatHead is an amazing tool that allows you to access the entire history of the NFL from a statistical standpoint for only a couple bucks a month, and where everything that you could want to find is just a few clicks away. I'll show you how easy it is to use. Here, I went to the player game finder, looked at totals from all games in a season by a player matching criteria, filtered it to just show the 2006 season, filtered it to just give me the numbers from weeks 1 through 11, and added a qualifier they had to kick at least 10 field goals. Just so that you wouldn't get guys who were 1 for 1 and would skew the data. And just like that, after putting in what I need, you can see everything that you need and see all the qualified kickers and their performance through the first 11 weeks of 2006. You can even see Lindo Mare at the very bottom, oddly enough. If you want to learn more about Mare, you can do so by clicking the card in the upper right corner. None of this footage was sped up or altered. This is genuinely how quick and easy it is to use. And if you use my code JG9, you get 20% off an annual subscription, which is a pretty good deal, seeing as I use this product religiously and have for years now. So go to StatHead by clicking the link in the description or pinned to the comments, and thanks to this incredible tool for sponsoring today's video. But making things even worse for this man right here was the fact that not only was he hitting on just 72% of his kicks, but these were easy kicks. He still hadn't made a kick from 50-plus yards, and he only had 2 kicks thus far that he made from 40-plus yards. And compounding the issue even more was what happened the previous week when the Jets hosted the Chicago Bears. Nearly 2 decades later, this game is infamous for when Nugent attempted an onside kick to start off the second half and completely botched it. That might make a good dumb decisions episode someday, seeing as the score was 0-0 at the halftime break. Head coach Eric Mangini said on the kick afterwards, "It looked good in practice," implying pretty heavily that Nugent didn't get enough height on the ball and didn't execute it. He did not do his job. And to add on top of that, the Jets bypassed not 1, but 2 extremely makeable field goals for any other kicker. In the first quarter, the Jets faced 4th and 12 at the 34-yard line, which would have been a 52-yard field goal. Mangini opted to punt, even despite there being little to no wind at this game, with the speed being 5 miles per hour. And in the fourth quarter, with the Jets trailing 10-0, the Jets faced 4th and 12 at the 37-yard line, which would have been a 55-yard field goal. Once again, Mangini opted to punt. It was clear that the Jets had no faith in Nugent whatsoever, and considering how short of a leash kickers have in the NFL, he was on especially thin ice. Which takes us to the main game in our story, as in the Texans game 1 week later. It's a 6-3 ball game following 2 field goals by Nugent, albeit 2 kicks from inside 35 yards out. The Jets have the ball inside at 2 minutes, and they're putting together a really good drive, as a drive that started on their own 26-yard line is now just outside the red zone. However, a second down play to Brad Smith loses 10 yards, and puts the Jets in a predicament, because they might be out of field goal range considering who their kicker is. They need to get some yardage on this third down play to at least salvage something on the drive and make it a 6-point game. Unfortunately for them, when Chad Pennington's pass on 3rd and 20 to Jericho Cotchery falls incomplete, the Jets have a decision to make. It's 4th and 20, and obviously, you're not going for it. You can punt the ball, pin the Texans deep, and just take the 6-3 lead going into the half. Or you can try a 54-yard field goal and make it 9-3, knowing that if you miss, the Texans have incredible field position and have a great chance to tie the game at the half. Again, today, it's a no-brainer. Unless the wind is something ridiculous, you kick the 54-yard field goal, because everyone is expected to make it from that far out. But with Mike Nugent in 2006, the man who had never hit a kick from 50-plus yards and had never even come close to doing so, the man who was one of the worst kickers in football, and the man who could have had multiple opportunities to kick from that range last week in the same stadium under the same conditions, and the coaching staff didn't trust him? Good luck. However, the Jets decided to do something interesting that maybe caught some people off guard considering Nugent's history. They lined up for the 54-yard field goal. The stakes were crystal clear for the former second-round pick, who was on thin ice. Make this kick, and we can trust you, and you keep your job. Miss this kick, and we've got to find someone else. Miss this kick, and show off your erratic and noodle leg, and your days in New York are done. With that, with just under 80 seconds left in the half, they lined up for the kick. As for what happened next,
back to return it. Nugent 0 for 1 from 50 and out this season, and that one is good one.
Money. Absolutely money. The Texans respected Nugent so little that they even had a return man back there just in case it fell short, because this was like a 65-yard kick for any other kicker. But Nugent drilled it. From 54 yards out, he made it look effortless, especially when considering the fact that it was the second longest field goal in Jets history since they moved to Giants Stadium in the mid-80s at the time. Finally, Mike Nugent had made a 50-plus yard field goal. The Jets parlayed that momentum boost into a convincing win, as after taking a 9-3 lead going into the half, the Jets won by a final score of 26-11, which wasn't even that close, seeing as the Jets led at 26-3 with 4 minutes left before a garbage time touchdown. And after the game, a lot of the talk was about this man right here, Mike Nugent, and how he not only finally got the monkey off his back, but finally got the coaching staff to trust him, and finally got to show off what he could really do. Said Nugent, "I had a good feeling, maybe in warm-ups. I was hitting the ball really good, really solid." He then added, "I was unbelievably confident in myself. I was thinking, if I could show them that I have confidence in myself, maybe the coaches would have confidence as well." And as you can imagine, the coaching staff was debating whether or not to try this field goal in the first place, considering the circumstances of the game, and considering how bad Nugent had been not just on the season, but throughout his entire career, especially from long distance. Said head coach Eric Mangini on his discussion with special teams coach Mike Westhoff, "The way Nuge was hitting them early, and the way he felt, and the way Mike Westhoff felt, I was comfortable with it. It wasn't a no-brainer, but we debated a little bit and then decided, all right, let's give it a shot." And safe to say, it worked wonders. Not only did Nugent make the kick, but the coaching staff was able to trust him, and he was able to keep his job. And after the game between these two teams behind me right here, I think it's safe to say that not only was Mike Nugent's career saved, but he really began to turn it around. This was the kick that sparked everything. From the Texan game until the end of the 2006 postseason, because the Jets did make it to the playoffs before losing in the wildcard round to New England, Mike Nugent went 19 for 19. He did not miss another field goal after the Texan game. He was that good. And he was able to be so reliable that he ended up playing in the NFL until 2020 with a variety of teams. But I'm not sure that career ever happens, or at least not to the extent that it does, if Nugent misses that field goal against the Texans, considering everything that we know. Sometimes, all it takes is one kick to save a career, and all it takes is one kick to be the spark necessary to propel a kicker to excellence. We saw this with Pete Stoyanovich in 1989 with the Miami Dolphins, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. We saw this with Ryan Lindell in 2001 with the Seattle Seahawks, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And we saw it in 2006 with this man right here, Mike Nugent. If he didn't make that kick, I'm not sure he's remembered throughout NFL history as anything more than a massive bust and as a failed Jets kicker. Instead, he was able to make that kick and turn it all around. Because in 2006, Mike Nugent's 54-yard kick was as sweet as nougat. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.